Megan, Annabelle, and Chucky are iconic dolls featured in popular films. Collectors are drawn to these eerie toys because of our fascination with the movies they star in. In a previous video, I covered the top 10 creepy doll movies, but I only went up to 1978. Now, let's rewind even further, starting in 1929, to explore more of these chilling classics. The unnerving presence of creepy dolls in entertainment predates modern horror, with early cinema and television capturing the eerie allure of these lifelike yet unsettling toys. From silent films to early television anthologies, these sinister figures have consistently tapped into humanity's deep-rooted fears of the uncanny. Let's delve into three notable examples of ventriloquist dolls and two films that shrink living beings to the size of a doll, spanning from 1929 through the 1950s. 1929. The Great Gabbo tells the story of Gabbo, played by Erich von Stroheim, an egotistical ventriloquist who achieves fame for his extraordinary performances with his dummy, Otto. While Gabbo's skill in his craft is undeniable, his abrasive personality and inability to form genuine human connections alienate those around him. Mary, played by Betty Compson, Gabbo's assistant and romantic partner, grows increasingly disillusioned with his relentless self-absorption and verbal abuse. Seeking a more fulfilling life, she leaves him, though she continues to hold fond memories of their happier times.
It's my act. And when it's bad, they blame me for it, and you're the one that makes it bad with your banking.
Oh, whenever the act goes wrong, I'm the one you always blame for it.
Because you're always to blame.
Gabbo's career rises as he becomes a celebrated act in the vaudeville circuit. However, he grows more dependent on Otto, using the dummy to voice his hidden insecurities and desires. This dependency blurs the line between man and puppet, with Otto becoming an unsettling extension of Gabbo's fractured psyche. The story reaches its climax when Gabbo attempts to win Mary back, only to be confronted with the reality of his own emotional inadequacies. His final rejection leads to a descent into despair, underscoring the tragic cost of his narcissism. At the time of its release, The Great Gabbo received mixed reviews. Critics praised Erich von Stroheim's intense performance, but were divided on the film's narrative structure and the integration of its musical elements. The psychological depth of Gabbo's character was considered bold and innovative for the time, though some found the pacing uneven. While the numbers are visually impressive, with costumes and elaborate choreography, they sometimes feel disconnected from the film's darker psychological narrative. However, these moments also provide a fascinating snapshot of the theatrical styles and production values of the late 1920s. Over the years, the film has gained recognition for its historical significance, particularly for its exploration of psychological themes and its pioneering use of ventriloquism as a dramatic device. The Great Gabbo is one of the earliest films to explore the psychological complexities of a ventriloquist and his dummy, influencing later works like Dead of Night in 1945 and Magic in 1978, or even The Twilight Zone's ventriloquist-themed episodes. The film is considered a cultural artifact of the late 1920s, reflecting the transition from silent cinema to sound. Von Stroheim was already an established name in silent cinema, known for his directorial works like Greed in 1924. His turn as Gabbo marked his first major foray into sound films. The dummy, Otto, was designed to be both endearing and unsettling, adding to the film's psychological tension.
You are not going to let her worry you, are you?
Worry me? Nothing, Otto. Nothing in this world can worry me.
Says you.
Yes, says me.
The Devil Doll is a 1936 horror fantasy film directed by Todd Browning, known for his earlier works like Dracula in 1931 and Freaks in 1932. The film, loosely based on Abraham Merritt's novel Burn Witch Burn, blends elements of science fiction, horror, and revenge drama into a compelling narrative. The film follows Paul Lavande, played by Lionel Barrymore, a former Parisian banker who has been wrongfully convicted of robbery and murder, framed by his corrupt business partners. After spending 17 years in prison on Devil's Island, Lavande escapes with a fellow inmate, Marcel, played by Henry B. Walthall, a scientist working on a radical experiment, shrinking living beings to a fraction of their original size. Marcel believes that miniaturizing humans will solve the world's resource shortages, but there's a disturbing side effect. The process leaves the victims in a near vegetative state, only able to move when mentally controlled by another person. After Marcel dies, Lavande takes control of the experiment, teaming up with Marcel's widow, the unhinged Malita, played by Rafaela Otiano, who is obsessed with continuing her husband's work. Seeing an opportunity for vengeance, Lavande uses the shrinking formula to create doll-sized assassins, whom he manipulates to exact revenge on those who framed him. To avoid detection, Lavande disguises himself as an elderly woman named Madame Mandelip, running a doll shop in Paris. Under this guise, he begins sending the miniaturized victims to kill his former associates. While pursuing his vendetta, Lavande also seeks to clear his name and reunite with his estranged daughter, Lorraine, played by Maureen O'Sullivan, who despises him for the crime she believes he committed. The Devil Doll is a film that balances horror with emotional depth. Lavande's character is not a conventional villain. Rather, he is a tragic figure driven by injustice. His journey from vengeance to self-sacrifice adds a layer of poignancy uncommon in many horror films of the era. Browning infuses the film with his signature elements: grotesque transformations, societal outsiders, and eerie, dreamlike imagery. The special effects, particularly the use of forced perspective and oversized props to create the illusion of tiny people, were groundbreaking for their time and remain one of the film's most memorable aspects. Lionel Barrymore delivers a remarkable performance, convincingly alternating between Lavande's hardened desperation and the eccentric, almost comical portrayal of Madame Mandelip. Maureen O'Sullivan, best known as Jane in the Tarzan films, brings warmth and emotional weight to the role of Lorraine. While The Devil Doll may not be as well remembered as Browning's Dracula or Freaks, it stands as a fascinating blend of horror, science fiction, and melodrama. Fans of classic horror and early special effects-driven cinema will find much to appreciate in this offbeat, yet captivating piece of 1930s Hollywood horror. Fun fact: Lionel Barrymore is Drew Barrymore's great uncle and played the villainous Mr. Potter in Frank Capra's 1946 film It's a Wonderful Life.
In this house.
The 1945 Dead of Night is a landmark British horror anthology film that remains influential for its innovative storytelling and eerie atmosphere. The film is one of the earliest examples of a horror anthology, with 5 interconnected stories tied together by a framing narrative. In the film, architect Walter Craig visits a country house for a gathering. Upon arrival, he experiences a sense of déjà vu and claims to have dreamed of the house and its inhabitants. His premonition unsettles the group, leading them to share their own supernatural experiences. The stories range from chilling to whimsical, culminating in a terrifying finale. The stories are The Hearse Driver, The Christmas Party, The Haunted Mirror, The Golfer's Story, and the 5th story is The Ventriloquist's Dummy. The Ventriloquist's Dummy is actually the most iconic segment, which tells the story of Maxwell Frere, a ventriloquist whose dummy Hugo appears to develop a mind of its own. Maxwell struggles with whether Hugo is alive or a projection of his fractured psyche. This story stars Michael Redgrave as Maxwell Frere, who gives a riveting performance as a man descending into madness. The dummy is lifelike but grotesque, with exaggerated features that make it unnervingly human-like. Hugo speaks out of turn, sabotages Maxwell's relationships, and even acts on his own. The story blurs the line between Maxwell's psychosis and Hugo's autonomy, leaving viewers uncertain whether Hugo is truly alive. The film takes a dark turn toward the end when Walter Craig's dream becomes a reality. Events spiral out of control as he descends into a nightmare where elements of all 5 stories collide.
Take a seat, sucker. What's biting you, sucker?
Looks kind of sick to me, Hugo.
Well, why don't you see a doctor?
Maybe he has seen a doctor. My, Hugo. We've never played to a murderer before, have we?
I know, Key. Is there a policeman in the house?
He wakes up, seemingly relieved, only to find himself at the start of the same day, repeating the cycle. This twist reinforces the film's themes of inevitability and dread. The first modern horror anthology, Dead of Night, is considered the blueprint for later anthologies like Creepshow in 1982 and Tales from the Crypt in 1972. Its emphasis on psychological horror over gore or spectacle sets it apart from earlier horror films. The Ventriloquist's dummy segment inspired countless similar stories, including the Twilight Zone episode The Dummy and Magic in 1978. Upon release, Dead of Night was praised for its innovation and psychological intensity. It remains a classic of British cinema.
Why, sure. I understand.
Ignore him, Sylvester. Just ignore him. I'm the one who gives orders round here. He's only...
Hugo, please.
Pipe down, you. Listen, my friend.
No. Say, what kind of a routine is this, anyway? Go away, will you? Leave us alone. Go away. Get out of here. Okay. I'm going.
In 1956, the Alfred Hitchcock Presents episode titled And So Died Ryabuchinska is one of the series' more memorable stories due to its unique blend of mystery and psychological drama. The episode And So Died Ryabuchinska from the first season of Alfred Hitchcock Presents stands as a haunting exploration of guilt, love, and fractured identity. Adapted from Ray Bradbury's short story and directed by Robert Stevenson, the episode weaves psychological depth with a murder mystery, leaving viewers unsettled yet reflective. At its core, the episode is a tragic character study masked as a detective story. The plot follows Detective Krovich, played by a young Charles Bronson, as he investigates a theater-related murder, leading him to the enigmatic ventriloquist John Fabian, played by Claude Rains, and his lifelike dummy, Ryabuchinska. The eerie atmosphere is heightened by Fabian's dependence on his dummy, whose voice and presence serve as a window into his psyche. The story deftly balances suspense with emotional poignancy, revealing a tragic love affair that intertwines with the murder. Claude Rains delivers a nuanced performance as John Fabian, capturing the ventriloquist's guilt and fragility with subtlety. His portrayal conveys a man haunted not just by a crime, but by his own past, giving the episode its emotional weight. Charles Bronson's Detective Krovich provides a sturdy counterbalance, his straightforward demeanor contrasting with Fabian's ethereal world. The true standout, however, is Ryabuchinska herself. Though a wooden dummy, her presence feels palpably real thanks to meticulous puppetry and Virginia Gregg's emotionally resonant voice work. The relationship between Fabian and Ryabuchinska is both unsettling and profoundly tragic, symbolizing lost love and unacknowledged guilt.
There was only one Luke Ockham, and he was a juggler, and he had been on the same bill with Fabian and Sweet William at the Grand Theater in Chicago, and he remembered that once there had been a woman before there was a dummy.
No. Let her talk.
The 1958 film Attack of the Puppet People, directed by Burt Gordon, tells the story of a deranged doll maker who shrinks people to add them to his creepy doll collection. The story follows Mr. Franz, played by John Hoyt, a lonely and eccentric doll maker who runs the Franz Dolls Incorporated factory. Beneath his unassuming demeanor lies a dark obsession. He cannot bear to be alone. To combat his loneliness, he uses a shrinking machine of his own invention to miniaturize people, turning them into doll-sized captives. The victims, who initially believe they are safe around Mr. Franz, discover his sinister secret too late. Trapped in glass cases, they are forced to entertain him as his personal living dolls. Tensions rise as Sally Reynolds, played by June Kenny, Mr. Franz's secretary, and her boyfriend Bob Wesley, played by John Agar, try to escape their tiny prison and return to normal size. The film combines elements of claustrophobic horror and absurd science fiction as the miniature victims try to outsmart their captor and survive. Attack of the Puppet People featured innovative special effects to create the illusion of miniaturized people interacting with normal-size environments. The use of oversized props, composite shots, and creative camera angles added to the movie's charm, even if the effects feel dated by modern standards. Critics of the time had mixed reactions to the film. It was often compared to Gordon's earlier work, The Amazing Colossal Man in 1957, and seen as the inverse of that story. While some criticized it for being campy, others appreciated its novelty and light-hearted approach to sci-fi horror. Over time, it has gained a cult following for its quirky premise and nostalgic appeal. While not a critical darling, Attack of the Puppet People remains a quintessential example of B-movie charm. Its campy yet unsettling storyline inspired future filmmakers in the realm of miniaturization horror and creepy doll concepts.
Are you afraid of your boss?
No, I'm not afraid of him. Well, maybe just a little. He does get a little peculiar at times.
What times?
When he talks to them. He's so serious. It's almost as if he expected him to talk back.
The rise of ventriloquist dummies in entertainment introduced a new level of creepiness. These talking figures straddled the line between inanimate objects and living beings, tapping into our instinctual discomfort with things that appear almost human but aren't quite right. These lifeless figures became vessels of repressed fears, fractured psyches, and the chilling intrusion of the supernatural into mundane life. This early fascination with dolls set the stage for the macabre masterpieces to come, birthing iconic narratives like The Twilight Zone and Child's Play. These seminal works delved into the timeless terror of objects that seem to possess a malevolent life of their own.